Okay, hi, Gayle Fuguitt here, President and CEO of the Advertising Research Foundation, here with Konrad Feldman.
Konrad Feldman, co-founder and CEO of Quantcast. Really happy to be here with the ARF at the Quantcast deck in Cannes.
I just find your background so fascinating. How in the world did you get from that to advertising?
I was always fascinated by data and the ability to use this branch of computer science called artificial intelligence to find patterns in data. And I just fell in love with internet data. And so many years later, when the prior company I'd started called SearchSpace was acquired, I knew I wanted to do something internet related, moved out to San Francisco and discovered that everyone was talking about internet advertising. Now what they were really talking about was search advertising because Google had just gone public.
Right.
And I saw this disconnect or this gap between what search enabled, which was the application of data to create real-time relevance, and everything else that was happening outside of search. And I didn't know much about advertising, so I started speaking to people in the industry to try and find out why we hadn't applied the ability to personalize content in real time outside of search. I discovered the problem was data. The idea for Quantcast was based on a hypothesis that with enough internet data, we could actually start to manufacture the types of data that could be used by a computer to modify content in real time and create relevance.
Give like a crystal ball or a bit of a window into the fields of marketing, advertising, and analytics.
And as we move increasingly towards real-time advertising, where we're using computer systems to make decisions uniquely about every impression opportunity, well, measurement and execution become two sides of the same coin. We have to measure in real time to be able to decide what to do with things. And with that, the value of research and data becomes significantly more substantial because we're now really influencing outcomes in a real-time sense. It also gives us the opportunity to understand more about our consumers and how their behaviors are changing, again, in near real time, so we can start to do things that weren't previously possible. And data is going to underpin this enormous transformation.
How do you think the field of analytics and research, how do you think that role of the researcher is going to evolve based on the ability for the consumer to have access to these important facts?
One of the challenges are that the data sets are so big, how do you deal with them? And that's really why we established Quantcast. We realized that the data sets that media companies and advertisers were going to be dealing with were going to be truly enormous. So we're going to see more and more data scientists in research and in media and advertising companies, and we're going to have to continue to develop our techniques. There are new statistical skills that the research industry is going to employ that are also used more broadly in the field of big data. And actually advertising and the digital media industry is really leading big data globally because the data sets are so big. We've had to develop these new techniques.
Speak a little bit about the role of creative.
Creative is obviously foundational to the effectiveness of advertising. Advertising exists to promote and ultimately to sell products, but the necessary proxy to getting to that is you have to engage consumers. You have to find a way of connecting with them and communicating your brand and your benefits and advantages, and creative can impact that immensely. So data can help with creative. We have a lot more data at our fingertips, and from a research perspective, we can better understand the audience.
How is creative going to become programmable?
There are examples of it today used in e-commerce. Sort of the classic would be the retargeting advertisements you see. After you've been to a site and you've looked at some products but you haven't bought them, you'll see ads that are showing the products you looked at and other related products.
Right. If you like this, maybe you'd be interested
in exactly. And of course, that's relatively straightforward to program because the product feeds are available, you've looked at specific products. Now, what if someone hasn't been to a site already? How might you modify creative? Well, you could imagine modifying creative based on where people live, or their age, or their gender, or their interests. We can imagine those things, but today to create lots of variations of creative is too expensive. Over time, the creative authoring tools themselves will become data aware, and that will enable creative to be more dynamic with respect to the data about the underlying recipient.
That's what has made you so successful.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with smart people. So I think you find people that offer the supplementary skills that creates a rounded team. You find people that believe in the mission and what you're trying to do, that share some of that curiosity and that want to do big things. You know, going after big things is motivating. And when you do that, you also have to accept that not everything you do is going to work. And in fact, that process of experimentation and failure is critical to achieving success.
I was going to ask about failure.
Failures, you learn so much from failures, and it's hard to imagine getting to success without failure.
What if you are completely wrong but you don't know it?
The more data that you have access to, the more important it is you remain open, because otherwise the risk of confirmation bias becomes very high. You can tease whatever you would like out of really large data sets.
Yeah.
So your openness going into it and being robust in terms of the statistical approaches that are used, I think can offer you some protection from the confirmation bias, where you just try to find things that match your own expectation or hypothesis.
Yeah,
I think that's very important.
What's the word for the future?
Well, I think a word for the future for our industry, as it is for all industries, is artificial intelligence.
So terrific to meet you. Thank you so much for your
pleasure.
time.